Well, it's now been 2 days since ICE agents were deployed at airports nationwide. And so far, the chaos that many predicted is yet to appear. As far as we can see, President Trump ordered the agents to assist TSA at American airports in the face of the ongoing Department of Homeland Security shutdown that has just been rocking Washington for weeks. The president said those ICE agents are going to be at airports for as long as it takes. And he also said that since he ordered that deployment, Democrats have become more interested in cutting a deal to end the partial government shutdown. Now, Democrats say reforming ICE is central to any deal to reopen DHS following the deadly shootings of Alex Preddy and Renee Good in Minnesota this past January. And thankfully, it looks like there may be some light at the end of the tunnel, because Senate Democrats said today that some progress has been made on a deal, though they say that the current Republican offer still does little to rein in ICE. And the drama, by the way, in Washington isn't confined to Congress. We've got to talk about the Supreme Court, because it looks like they may be poised to reject a Mississippi law that allows for late-arriving mail-in ballots. Now, I know questioning by the court is not always indicative of what the decision will be, but you had conservative justices that leveled some pretty pointed questions at the state's lawyer about the law, which allows ballots that are postmarked by Election Day to be counted if they're received within 5 business days after the election. But federal law says it's really about Election Day, right? That's when the ballots are supposed to be counted. That's when they're final. Now, the outcome of the case could have sweeping consequences for the midterm elections, because 19 total states and territories allow late ballots to be counted. And some fear that the law's repeal could mean chaos on Election Day. A decision on this case is expected early this summer. So this is well ahead of the midterm elections. A lot going on. Got to talk about it. I want to get some political minds, better minds than me, to help break this down. Harry Sisson is a progressive political commentator, and Brilyn Hollyhand is a Republican political commentator and the author of Make America Talk Again. Two fresh voices. I'm happy to have you both here. Harry, I'm going to start with you. Doesn't seem to be the chaos at the airports like many people predicted, with ICE being there. Not a bad decision?
I mean, we've seen some ICE agents arresting people. There was a woman in San Francisco who was detained in front of her child. She had no criminal history. And so they've only been there a couple days. There might be more chaos to come, but I mean, we'll just have to kind of wait and see on this one.
See, here's the part about Brilyn where I think about it. The idea of, providing some ease to TSA officers would be great, but then I think about the counter-argument. Counter-argument would be that this has bought the president time to not make a deal so quickly. If you have ICE there, yes, they're not replacing TSA officers, but it's also now putting less pressure to make a deal so quickly at their expense. The union that represents TSA officers is not happy about this. What would you say? This is unfair to TSA officers by putting ICE in, because again, now it buys the president more time to make a deal on what terms he wants.
Well, it's just another day, another example of the Dems using chaos to try to scare voters ahead of the midterms. We discussed this same issue last time Harry and I were on the show. It's just a different topic. They used the chaos in Minneapolis to try to fearmonger voters, and now they're using the chaos at the airport to try to fearmonger voters. So the left doesn't have good candidates. They don't have good policies.
No, but what about TSA workers? Aren't they disenfranchised because of this?
I think they're actually allowed to be able to be happy that they have some people coming in to be reinforcements. I flew through the Atlanta airport to get here for the show after class, and these people were so overworked, 6-hour lines out the place. The college students in front of me, the parents behind me that were frustrated going to TSA, I've never seen people happier to get to talk with them.
I think we both can agree if a deal is reached, that'll be the best solution. Harry, I want to go to you. I want to play you what Republican Senator John Kennedy said about Senator Chuck Schumer, about asking concessions on a possible DHS deal.
I don't blame Senator Schumer for trying, but I would, if I were he, and he's more experienced than I am, I would proceed very cautiously, because if he wants to change the deal at this juncture and refuses to go along, we'll just withdraw all concessions and do the whole DHS budget reconciliation.
Reconciliation is if you pass it with a simple majority. It's basically about fiscal, not about policy. Here's the thing. This is where I think the problem is for Democrats right now, is that holding this up, the narrative is they're holding this up, they're holding DHS up. And yes, while, reforms for ICE are very important, that's not the immediate problem. The immediate problem is what's happening with airports. The immediate problem is what's happening with TSA officers, particularly when there's a heightened concern about attacks, given what's happening with Iran. Do you think Schumer and Democrats are handling this right, Harry?
Well, I actually think that, the Democrats are sharing the same concerns that you are. Democrats have put forward a bill, tried to get it passed 11 times, that funds TSA while keeping ICE out of it so we can continue to negotiate the immigration aspect of it. Republicans have rejected it every single time. Leader Thune went to Donald Trump with this exact offer. Trump said no. Senator Kenney, who we just heard from, said the exact same thing, that he went to Donald Trump with this offer, and they said no. So right now, I really don't believe it's the Democrats holding up this funding. We want a clean fund for TSA, get them paid, get them back to work. Republicans are the one holding that up.
This is the part that I'm confused about. Are Republicans going to agree to any of the concessions made about ICE? Because, yes, there was a proposition put forward that they'll relinquish $5.5 billion that would go to ICE enforcement, but they're not going to make concessions when it comes to actually how these ICE agents operate. Is there any kind of reforms that you think Republicans would agree to? Is it the warrants? Is it masks? What do you think?
Yeah, I think warrants, masks, body cams, all of it is stuff that we're willing to cede ground on. I think there's a magical word for what Harry just shared, and it's called lying. I think a lot of people said a clean bill is not going to happen in D.C., and what we saw happen is wanting to defund TSA. Well, Gen Z understands the truth of what TSA and actual ICE agents are doing. Just look no further than the empty table of the family of Sheridan right now, a college freshman just like me who got killed by an illegal alien that came across the border under Biden. That her life could have been saved if we had ICE officers actually enforced.
But just to be clear, do you think there's any reforms that would actually hamper their ability to do their job? You think if they wouldn't stop wearing masks, they wouldn't do their job?
I think body cams and masks and all that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm down for that. Absolutely.
Harry, Supreme Court, want to get this real quick. Big decision about mail-in voting. One argument is, you should only count the ballots that come on Election Day. It's what Election Day is. Your thoughts on what the Supreme Court's going to do, and more importantly, if they overturn this law, what are Democrats going to do?
Well, I mean, it remains to be seen what Democrats will do. I'm sure there'll be action in individual states that seek to get around this in some way because, look, the Democrats want to promote voting. Whether it's a Democrat, Republican, Independent, I don't care who you are. I want to make sure your voice is heard. Republicans have consistently gone after voting rights, whether it be the Supreme Court with the Voting Rights Act of the 1960s, or Republicans on a state level. They hate mail-in ballots, yet Trump loves voting via mail. But we want to expand voting. Republicans really seem to want to tamp down on this stuff, and unfortunately, the Supreme Court looks like they're going to do that, but we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Quick response?
To me, it's simple. It's election day, not election week, not election month. If you miss tax day, you're going to get fined. If I miss turning my homework in by midnight tonight, I'm going to get a 0. We've been really clear when we want to make elections safe and secure. We had to both use an ID to get into the studio. Why is this studio safer than elections are? Why are we not actually checking our IDs?
You didn't have to? You did.
I didn't.
Guys, great having you.
Thanks for having us.
Have you done this before? Have you done this before? Good to see you, professionals. Thanks so much, guys. Harry Sisson, Brilyn Hollyhand, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.